to another video. So right now I'm sitting on a pile of Dungeons and Dragons books, so tall that it's acting as a chair. But you know, that fits great into this video anyway, because this time we're talking all about books. My top 10 comic books. Now, before we get started, I want to say that all of these books are amazing. Like, none of these books, even if it's not in first place, which based on my shirt you can probably guess what's going in first place, just because they're not in first place doesn't mean they're not good comics. They're all amazing. I just couldn't have my top 50 comics. That would be like 3 hours of video, 5 hours of video. So I just want to say right off the bat, all of these are great comics. Just because it's in 10th place doesn't mean it's not a good book. And without further ado, 10th place. This is Seven to Eternity. I love this book. It's shown me fantasy and magic systems in a way that I hadn't thought of before. God of Whispers has spread an omnipresent paranoia to every corner of the land of Zal. His spies hide in every hall, spreading mistrust and fear. Adamositis, a dying knight from a disgraced house, must choose between joining a hopeless order of magical warriors and mercenaries in their desperate bid to free their world of the evil god, or accepting the god's promise to give Adam everything he's ever dreamed of. All men have surrendered their freedom for fear. Now one last free man must choose between the fate of the world and his own heart's desire. I really liked about it in hindsight was the amount of plot twists, but not in a negative way. I know that sometimes stories can have too many plot twists. I don't think that this ever had too many plot twists. I think that it was just surprising. I never saw them coming. And I think that the ending was really unexpected. I really appreciated it as a story that was set in a really well thought out world. Like, the magic system is unlike anything that I've ever seen before, and it made me want to write. It got me so excited. It made me think of characters, and I feel like a good world is really vital, and this nails it in every regard. It's not just sort of black and white about the heroes and the villains. At certain points you sort of wonder, are the villains and are the heroes the heroes? I really like that sort of storytelling. I like to be able to really get to know the villain as well, or possibly even better sometimes, than I get to know the hero, and this story is definitely about both of them, and I really suggest it, especially if you're into fantasy, or even if you're into sci-fi and you want to get into fantasy. It's an amazing book. Next up in 9th place is Descender and Ascender, its sequel. Descender's the first one, and it's personally my favorite half of the series, so I wanted to stick with this one. Speaking of fantasy, Ascender and Descender have a really fascinating concept to me. The first half is like super hard sci-fi, which is Descender, and then the second half, Ascender, is fantasy. It has sci-fi elements, of course, because the original was sci-fi and they tie together. But I'd never seen something like that before, and it was really fascinating to me getting to see that it was super classically science fiction, and then it totally flipped it on its head and was like hardcore fantasy. And that's really fascinating as a concept to me, and I think that it delivers by having a well fleshed out science fiction world and a well fleshed out fantasy world. The art is amazing in both of them, same artist, and I think it might be watercolor paint, which I don't know if you can tell very much from this, but it really does look like watercolor, doesn't it? And it's beautiful, really. I feel like there's amazing character evolution in the series across Descender and Ascender, a sequel. Characters don't exactly start out loving each other, and I really appreciated getting to watch them naturally sort of become a unit, whereas before they seemed very separate. 10 years after planet-sized robots called Harvesters appeared and wreaked havoc across the galaxy, a young android named Tim-21 wakes to find that all robots have been outlawed. But Tim may hold the secrets to the Harvesters in his machine DNA, and he quickly becomes the most wanted robot in the universe. With bounty hunters and threats lurking at every turn, Tim embarks on a mind-blowing adventure through the stars along with his robot dog Bandit and a lumbering mining droid Driller, along with several other characters who I absolutely adored. Shout out to the amazing hair of one Captain Telsa. But if you love sci-fi, if you love fantasy, if you love when the two meet, definitely check this out, because I don't think you've ever seen them meet in quite this way before. Now, Teasley, don't do that. Now, in 8th place of Why the Last Man. I'm a huge Brian K. Vaughan fan, so I've been trying to collect and read everything that he's written, and Why the Last Man was the most recent that I tracked down and found and read. Not that it's hard to find. I don't know why I made it sound like it was like super difficult to track down. So this story I really appreciated that didn't scare me. Now, let me put that into context. I love post-apocalyptic stories. However, I am very easily scared. So anything with zombies or monsters or being chased, I just can't really watch or read scary post-apocalyptic sort of thing. Wait, Teasley? Favorite doggy ever. Mwah. So what I really appreciated about this was that I could read it, it was post-apocalyptic, and I was never scared. I never felt super anxious, I never had nightmares, and I think that that's rare, at least in post-apocalyptic things. I feel like a lot of times it's a monster. It's an amazing story. The characters are really well thought out, they change a lot as the story goes on. After Man. In 2002, the world changes forever. Every man, every boy, every mammal with a Y chromosome everywhere on Earth suddenly collapses and dies. With the loss of more than half the planet's population, the gears of society grind to a halt, and a world of women are left to pick up the pieces and try to keep civilization from collapsing entirely. The gender side, however, is not absolutely complete. For some unknown reason, one young man named Yorick Brown and his pet male monkey, Ampersand, are spared. Overnight, this anonymous 20-something become the most important person on the planet, the key, it is hoped, to unlocking the secret of the mysterious sex-specific plague. For Yorick himself, the most important person on the planet is 10,000 miles away, and he will stop at nothing to find her. In setting off across the post-mill landscape, however, man and monkey are about to learn just how valuable they are as a prize and as a target. Okay, so next up, in 7th place, we have Amulet. This was actually the first comic that I ever really read, I'm pretty sure. Or actually, my dad read it to me. It's not a monthly comic like the rest of the ones that I've been talking about so far. It's actually like big graphic novels. I believe there's 9 of them. I'm not entirely sure if I just never bought the last one or if the last one never came out. Despite that, I really do suggest it. They're amazing. The art is very cute, as you can see, this little guy, but it's still very like the comic talks about some very serious topics at times while remaining fun and playful, and I just love the world. Again, I feel like a lot of these books I'm talking about, they just have amazing world building. I really like the world mechanics and the magic system in this as well. I feel like it's done very well, and there's a lot of mystery, and it slowly unfolds, and I think the stories and the character evolution is amazing because you get to watch some very sort of like young, sort of naive-ish, not exactly naive, but a more young, inexperienced characters really become masters and leaders in their own right. After a family tragedy, Emily, Navin, and their mother moved to an ancestral home to start a new life. On the family's very first night in the mysterious house, Em and Navin's mom is kidnapped by a tentacled creature. Now it's up to Em and Navin to figure out how to set things right and save their mother's life. I'm sorry for the barking. I'm gonna go grab Teasley because we're currently having a thunderstorm and she's scared of lightning.
Sometime later.
Okay, next. 6th place. Miss Marvel. I am not a superhero comics person. I've never been especially drawn to them. I really love this comic, and I like the superhero elements, but I think that I like the characters more than anything else. Yes, there are villains, and yes, there are superpowers, but my favorite scenes are when Kamala is just, I don't know, eating dinner with her parents. I think that if you're not super sure if you want to get into superhero comics, or if you are a big fan of superhero comics, either way, this one's great. The characters are lovable, they're annoying at times, they have arcs, you get to really watch their stories bounce off of each other and go in different directions and then come back together again, and I just think it's got a wonderful cast. Some of the storylines are a little wacky, I will say that. So if you need a really gritty, serious story, this probably isn't for you. But I sort of loved that level of wackiness, like when Loki hangs out and I think there might be blue hippos. I'm not sure, but I remember blue hippos. That may have just been totally made up, but that's the sort of stuff that's in it. And I think it's done really well because I feel like you could have that level of wackiness and it could be over the top and too much, and it is over the top, but in the same part that has Loki wreaking total mischievous havoc and has you cracking up, the narration could have you like close to tears because of everything it's talking about. Like, it just really balances serious and humorous writing super well, in my opinion. So that's why I suggest this one. Bala Khan is an ordinary girl from Jersey City until she's suddenly empowered with extraordinary gifts. But who truly is the new Miss Marvel? Teenager, Muslim, Inhuman? Find out as she takes the Marvel Universe by storm. When Kamala discovers the dangers of her newfound powers, she also unlocks a secret behind them. Is Kamala ready to wield these immense gifts? Or will the weight of the legacy prove before... I can't read words. Or will the weight of the legacy before her prove too much to bear? Kamala has no idea either. But she's coming for you, Jersey. 5th place goes to the one, the only, Darth Vader. Yes, there have been many Darth Vader comics. I have read multiple of them. This one's my favorite by far. I appreciate different things about all of them, but I feel like this one just clicked with me for some reason. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Darth Vader is such an iconic and fascinating villain, and this comic book completely captured his voice. It elevates his character, I feel like, because in the original trilogy, you don't get to see too much of Darth Vader, not just being like a servant of the Emperor, but he's so much more than that. And this comic really illustrates that. And it introduces one of my all-time favorite comic book characters ever, Dr. Aphra, who we will be talking more about in just a minute, as she might have a comic that's next on my list. Dr. Aphra is an amazing character, not just in Star Wars, but I feel like in comic books in general. And this comic, the Vader comics, is where we first meet her. And it's just done so well. She's instantly iconic in my mind. And you really get to watch her and Vader bounce off of each other. So I'm just gonna jump right over to my number 4, Dr. Aphra. Now, she got her own comics because she's so cool and cute. But anyway, these comics are amazing in every way that the Vader comics are, but for sort of different reasons. Both sets are very well written, but Dr. Aphra, as it's a new character of their own creation, they really got to go for it, I feel like, a little bit more than they did with Vader. You definitely have to read the Vader comics before you read the Aphra comics for them to make sense, but it's definitely well worth it. The first couple I read and loved, and then it hits a certain point where it totally started to blow my mind, and I'm gonna hold some of those up as the greatest comics I have ever read in my life. The theme is so moving, and I don't want to get into it because I want you to just be able to see it evolve organically. These are some really moving comics to me, but they're also really wacky. I mean, Aphra is just this perfect combination of totally wacky and totally serious, and I think that it's a really hard line to walk, and I think that it's done really well here. And if you're a Star Wars fan, this and Darth Vader are must-reads. If you're a comic book fan, and I mean, you've probably seen the original trilogy, that's all you really need to see. I mean, I can't vouch for them more. I love these so much. Now we are into my top 3, and in 3rd place, we have one of my all-time favorite comics. Probably not what you're expecting from me. It's Giant Days. This is actually like a comedy, pretty much. Hilarious and quirky. It's a great mood reset. If I'm in a bad mood one day, or I just wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or something's not going my way, I can read these and I'm instantly cheered up. It's very relatable, and the characters are relatable, but they're also super over the top in different ways. And some of the storylines are just amazing. It's just like heartwarming in a certain way, but it'll also make you laugh a ton, and I love these. The characters are awesome. I love the characters, and I love one of the characters in particular's style, like Esther right here on the cover. I want to dress like this. I've been looking for these shoes. I want them. This is how I want to dress on a day-to-day basis. Granted, her gothic regalia is a little bit over the top for me at some points, but her casual day-to-day wear is how I want to look on a day-to-day basis. And I love the art style. Susan, Esther, and Daisy started at university 3 weeks ago and became fast friends. Now, away from home for the first time, all 3 want to reinvent themselves. But in the face of hand-wringing boys, personal experimentation, influenza, mystery mold, new chauvinism, I can't pronounce that, and the willful, unwanted intrusion of academia, they may be lucky just to make it to spring alive. Going off to university is always a time of change and growth, but for Esther, Susan, and Daisy, things are about to get a little weird. That is exactly what happens. It gets a little weird in the best way possible. 2nd place goes to another Brian Vaughan story, Paper Girls, which I am not the only fan of in my household. This is also the comic that got my sister into looking through my comic book shelf. I mean, just looking at the cover here, you can tell that the art is phenomenal. And the coloring and the art and the combination of them is so awesome. It's just beautiful, and I had never seen anything like it before. So cool. It's, again, humorous and serious at different times. I feel like that's a given in most of the stories that I like. I'm not like a super gritty, serious, story-loving person usually, although I sort of just love all sorts of stories. The characters are great, and you get to watch them sort of change over the series. And again, excellent world building. It's set in our world, but with some time travel elements. So it's like a time travel story. You get to see the past, you get to see the future, you get to see well, not right now. You never actually see right now because it's set in the 80s. So it's also got the 80s nostalgia thing going for it, which I didn't grow up in the 80s, but I feel like the 80s nostalgia is everywhere right now with Stranger Things, and I won't endorse 80s hair, but once in a while there's a little bit of 80s fashion that I like. The story and plot are really well thought out, and the end is worth the wait. It lands the ending, in my opinion, which I think is hard to do. All in all, just an exciting read where you never really know where it's going to take you, and if you have any guesses, they will probably be wrong. In the early hours after Halloween of 1988, 4 12-year-old newspaper delivery girls uncover the most important story of all time. Suburban drama and supernatural mysteries collide in this smash hit series about nostalgia, first jobs, and the last days of childhood. I'd like to actually ask my sister to review this as well, since this is one of her favorites.
So, I feel like what I like about it, one, art is amazing. Especially for me, wanting to be an artist when I grow up. I tried to draw the images from this, and I just, it was so hard to draw. It looked like garbage. But, again, yeah, the coloring. But, also, I feel like the story, the characters, the way they bounce off each other and, how they react to the situations they're in, I just think is really good storytelling. And, character telling. Every scene is there for a purpose, but it just, really comes together. I also feel like there's a lot of, reveals in it, which, again, it's all about the characters. The reveals are oh, this thing happened, so now how do the characters react? And I feel like that's just, it's a really well-written, character-based story. And basically just, if you like characters, then give it a try. Also, if you like art, give it a try.
Thank you very much for coming on our show. Really appreciate it. And finally, in first place, the one, the only, the comic that got me into comics, that got me into writing comics, that blew my mind, Saga. I love this series so much. It means so much to me. It is the story that made me want to become a comic book writer. It is the story that has made me almost cry multiple times. It has made me laugh out loud while reading it. That has gotten me so attached to the characters that I'm wearing a shirt of one of them right now. It is amazing. I mean, there are figures on my bookshelf. Here are the 3 big books. This is the most recent trade paperback that came out for it, I'm pretty sure. There's a more recent one, let me know, because I need to get it. Saga's amazing. It has such a grand scope. It goes all across this galaxy, and yet it feels like such a small and compact, in a way, story, because it really is about everything, but everything through the lens of these characters. It's just done so well. The art is breathtaking. It's some of the finest comic art I've seen. It's funny, it's serious, it's heartbreaking, legitimately heartbreaking. But that's not to the point. Right now, we're talking about all the things that make you want to read the book, not getting your heart torn from your chest, pounded to bits on the floor, and then anyway, it's amazing. And I'm just gonna keep saying that over and over and over until this video ends. The characters are wonderful. I love all of them, even the ones I hate because they're so hateable. The narration. This is probably only gonna matter to you writers out there, but the narration is so good. The foreshadowing is so good. It hits. The narration is the part that made me want to become a comic book writer. Why? I don't know. So the story is set in a science fiction I can't use words today, I'm sorry. /fantasy world. It follows Marco, Elena, and their daughter Hazel. Marco and Elena are from different sides of a war that's currently consuming the galaxy, and this is sort of made it so there's lots of people hunting them. They're not supposed to be together. And it's a story of them, the people hunting them, the friends that all of these people make along the way. It's a story about all of these people and basically how they raise Hazel, each in their own little way, how they shape her life. It's narrated by Hazel, and the story follows her as she grows up. It starts with her birth, and we'll see where it ends. This series is actually still coming out right now as we speak, so I don't know how it ends, but I'm sure it's gonna be phenomenal if the series so far is any indication. It's just awesome. I can't really give you any more than that. I'm looking at my notes, and really the best word to describe it is just, it's awesome. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on this very haphazard video. Maybe when you're watching it's not haphazard and it's actually really polished and refined, and that's because of how great I am at editing, if so. If not, that means I'm not good at editing yet, and sorry. But I hope that you liked it, whatever quality it comes out, and I hope that my footage looks better because I figured out I was filming on the wrong setting, and I hope that you check out some of these comics. Let me know your top comic right now in the comments, because I really need some more comics to read. I've pretty much finished up all my series, and I haven't read anything in a while. So I would love to get some more comic ideas. So let me know what comic you suggest I read, and which of these comics you're considering reading. And while you're at it, if you want to tap that notification button and subscribe, that's in the wrong order.